From the first day she arrived, things were different for Emily. Moving from one foster home to another had made her feel like she never really belonged anywhere. She was a quiet girl with blonde hair, always wearing her favorite white shirt and glasses that made her look a little older than she was. She kept to herself most of the time, afraid to trust anyone again. Her new foster dad, James, was a calm and kind man with black hair. He usually wore a blue shirt and had a gentle smile that could make anyone feel at ease. He understood that Emily was not an easy child to open up. He knew her silence was a shield built from years of pain and disappointment. James didn't push her to talk or share her feelings. Instead, he showed her kindness in small ways, making her favorite meals, giving her space when she needed it, and listening without judgment when she finally spoke. For James, being a foster dad was more than just a responsibility. It was a chance to give a child the love and security he never wanted her to miss. One afternoon, as Emily sat by the window reading, James came outside and stood next to a blue car parked in the driveway. The car was old but clean and shiny, a small miracle in its own right. James wore his usual blue shirt, and his black hair caught the sunlight as he smiled softly at her. "Emily," he said gently, "come here for a moment." She looked up from her book and hesitated. It was rare for James to call her like this, so she quietly walked outside. The sun warmed the air around them, and the blue car gleamed softly beside them. James handed her the keys, his hand steady and kind. "This is for you," he said simply. Emily blinked, staring at the small metal keys in her hand. A rush of emotions filled her: surprise, confusion, and a deep, almost unbelievable hope. "For me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," James replied. "You deserve this. It's your first car." For a moment she couldn't find the words. She looked at James, then at the car and back again. No one had ever done something like this for her before. She felt a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. The blue car stood there quietly, waiting for her to take it for a drive, to feel the freedom she had only dreamed about. James watched her carefully, knowing how much this moment meant, even if she didn't say it out loud. "Thank you," she finally said, clutching the keys tightly. She wasn't sure if the words were enough, but it was all she could give right then. James smiled warmly. "You're welcome, Emily. I want you to know, no matter what happens, you have someone who cares about you." Emily felt something inside her soften, a small crack in the walls she had built around her heart. She looked at James, seeing him not just as a foster dad, but as someone who believed in her. She touched the car's door handle gently, then looked back at James. "Can I drive it tomorrow?" "Of course," James said. "We'll go slow, and I'll be with you." That night, Emily lay awake, turning the moment over and over in her mind. The blue car in the driveway wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of trust, hope, and a new beginning. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she might have a place to call home. Little did she know, this simple gift would change her life in ways she never expected. James's kindness was more than just doing a job. It was a chance to heal and grow, one small step at a time. After that day with the blue car and the keys in her hand, Emily started to feel a little different. It wasn't just the car that made her heart race. It was the fact that James, her foster dad, believed in her enough to give her something so important. She had never had anyone do something like that before. James knew Emily was nervous about the car. She had never driven before, and the idea of controlling something so big made her anxious. He didn't want to push her too fast. Every afternoon after school, he would sit with her in the driveway next to the blue car, patiently teaching her how to start the engine, how to use the brakes, and how to steer. "Take your time," James would say in his calm voice, his black hair slightly messy from the breeze. "There's no rush. You'll get better with practice." Emily listened carefully, gripping the steering wheel with both hands. Her blonde hair fell over her glasses as she focused. Sometimes she made small mistakes, accidentally hitting the gas too hard or jerking the wheel. But James never got upset. Instead, he encouraged her and helped her learn. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Kids played nearby, and neighbors waved when they saw James and Emily practicing. James's patience showed her that he was not just doing his job, but truly cared about her. For the first time, she felt safe enough to try something new without fear. One afternoon, James surprised Emily by taking her out for a drive beyond the neighborhood. The blue car rolled slowly along empty streets and open fields. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, but James's calm presence beside her made her feel braver. "You're doing great," he said with a smile. "See? You can handle this." She smiled back, feeling a small spark of pride. Driving wasn't just about learning a skill. It was about gaining freedom and independence, things she never thought she'd have. Even with all this progress, Emily's white friends at school didn't fully understand her life with James. Some of them whispered behind her back. They said things like, "He's just a foster dad. He's only doing what he has to." These words hurt Emily deeply because she knew how much James did for her, beyond any requirement. At school, she kept those feelings inside. She didn't want to explain the complicated bond she shared with James or defend the love he showed her. But in her heart, she knew he was more than a caregiver. He was family. One day, after a long day of driving practice, Emily sat with James on the porch. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange light around them. She looked at him, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and sadness. "Thank you for everything," she said softly. James looked at her with kind eyes. "You're welcome, Emily. I want you to know you're not alone anymore. No matter what happens, I'm here." Those words meant more than she could say. For years, Emily had felt alone and unwanted. Now with James by her side, she felt hope. Slowly, the walls around her heart began to crumble. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a future where she belonged and was loved. And all this started with a simple blue car, a man in a blue shirt, and a girl who dared to dream. As weeks passed, Emily grew more comfortable behind the wheel of the blue car. James was always patient, standing nearby or sitting beside her, ready to help if she needed. Driving was no longer scary. It became a new part of her life she looked forward to. One afternoon, after practicing turns and parking, James suggested they take the car on a longer drive. "How about we go to the park?" he asked, his voice calm and encouraging. Emily hesitated but then nodded. She trusted James and wanted to see how far she could really go. The drive to the park was quiet but peaceful. The sun was bright, and the wind brushed through the open windows. When they reached the park, Emily parked the blue car carefully. James smiled and said, "See, you're doing better every day." They walked around the park, talking about simple things, school, music, dreams. James listened more than he talked, but his presence was comforting. Emily found herself sharing little bits of her life, things she had never told anyone before. At the park, Emily noticed some kids playing nearby. They looked like her school friends, but she didn't feel like going over. She still felt different, like she didn't quite fit in. Back at school, the whispers continued. Some classmates still didn't understand her relationship with James. They treated him like a stranger, saying he was only a foster dad and nothing more. Emily heard the words, but she refused to believe them. James had done so much for her, more than anyone else. One day, a classmate asked her directly, "Does he really care about you? Or is he just doing his job?" Emily looked at her carefully. She wanted to explain how James stayed up late when she was scared, how he celebrated every little success with her, and how he never gave up. But she only said quietly, "He cares more than you think." At home, James noticed Emily's silence after school. He sat beside her on the couch, wearing his familiar blue shirt, and said, "People don't always understand. What matters is what you know in your heart." Emily nodded. She felt lucky to have James. He wasn't perfect, but he was real, and he was there. One evening, James surprised Emily by washing the blue car on himself. She watched from the porch, her blonde hair glowing in the sunset light. James worked carefully, wiping every spot, making sure the car looked its best. "This car is yours now," he said with a smile. "Take care of it." Emily felt warmth inside. This wasn't just about the car. It was about trust and belonging. The car became more than a vehicle. It was a symbol of James's support and belief in her. Every time she drove, she remembered that someone cared enough to give her a chance. Slowly, Emily's world started to change. She learned to trust again. She found joy in small moments and strength in James's steady presence. She still faced challenges, especially from people who didn't understand their family. But Emily knew one thing clearly. James was more than just a foster dad. He was her family, her protector, and her friend. And that was enough. Emily was starting to feel more confident driving her blue car, but school was still a difficult place. Even though James supported her at home, some classmates didn't understand their relationship. They whispered things that made her uncomfortable. One day during lunch, Emily overheard a group of students talking. "He's just your foster dad," one said. "He's only doing his job, nothing special." Another added, "He's not really family." The words stung, but Emily stayed quiet. She knew the truth was different. James had been there through her darkest days. He never treated her like a burden or a responsibility. Instead, he treated her with kindness and respect. At home, James noticed Emily's silence and asked gently, "What's on your mind?" She hesitated but then shared a little about what was happening at school. James listened carefully and said, "People don't always understand what love really means. It's okay to feel hurt, but don't let their words change how you feel inside." Emily nodded slowly. She wished others could see James the way she did. A man who wore his blue shirt proudly, who never gave up on her, and who stood by her no matter what. One weekend, James planned a surprise. He took Emily to a small family gathering. There were people of different ages and backgrounds, all welcoming and warm. Emily felt nervous but curious. James introduced her to everyone as his daughter. Some smiles were shy, but many were genuine. Emily saw how James was loved and respected by those around him, and it made her feel proud. During the gathering, Emily talked with James about the car. "It's more than just a car to me," she said. "It feels like a symbol of everything you've done." James smiled softly. "I wanted you to have something that gives you freedom and hope, something to remind you that you matter." That night, back home, Emily looked at the blue car parked outside. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Every scratch and dent told a story of growth and change. Slowly, Emily's heart began to heal. She started to believe that family wasn't just about blood, but about love, trust, and care. At school, she still faced challenges, but she felt stronger. When classmates whispered or stared, she held her head high, knowing James was her real family. One afternoon, James helped Emily clean the blue car together. As they worked side by side, Emily felt a deep sense of belonging. The car, James, and her new family were all connected. She smiled, thinking about how far she had come from a scared girl hiding behind her glasses to someone who had a place to call home. And it all began with a man in a blue shirt, who saw her not as a foster child, but as his daughter. Emily's days with James were slowly changing her life. The blue car was more than just a vehicle. It was a new beginning. She spent hours practicing driving, gaining confidence with every turn and stop. James never rushed her. He stayed calm and patient, always wearing his blue shirt and offering gentle advice. Sometimes they talked about things beyond driving, her hopes, her fears, and the future she wanted. One afternoon, James suggested they visit a nearby town. "Let's take a small trip," he said. Emily felt nervous but excited. Driving further was a big step, but James promised to be right there with her. They left early in the morning. The road stretched ahead, open and full of possibilities. Emily gripped the steering wheel, feeling the car respond to her every move. James smiled quietly beside her, proud of how far she had come. Along the way, they stopped at a small cafe. Emily looked around and saw people chatting and laughing, families together. She wished her own family could be like that, close, caring, and happy. "You're building your own family now," James said, noticing her thoughts. "It doesn't have to be perfect, just real." Emily nodded. She thought about all the times she had felt alone, and how James had been there steady and kind. Back home, school was still a challenge. Some classmates whispered and stared because James was black and she was white. Emily heard the hurtful words but tried not to let them affect her. One day, a teacher noticed and spoke to her privately. "Family comes in many forms," the teacher said kindly. "What matters is the love and support you have." Emily smiled, feeling grateful. She was learning that family wasn't just about blood. It was about those who choose to care. At home, James surprised her with a small gift, a photo album filled with pictures from their time together. "For you to remember how strong you are," he said. Emily flipped through the pages, seeing moments she had almost forgotten. The first day she got the car keys, their drives, the park visits, and quiet talks. She realized how much she had grown. James had not just given her a car. He had given her hope and trust. One evening, Emily sat in the blue car, looking at the stars. She whispered, "Thank you, James." He stood beside her, his black hair shining in the moonlight. "You're welcome, Emily. I'll always be here." With that, Emily felt a deep peace. She knew her journey was just beginning. But with James by her side, she could face anything. The blue car, the man in the blue shirt, and the girl with blonde hair and glasses had become a family, strong, imperfect, but full of love. Emily's life was slowly changing, but not everything was easy. At school, some students still didn't understand her relationship with James. They whispered and stared, sometimes making rude comments. It hurt Emily, but she kept her head high. One afternoon, after a difficult day at school, Emily sat in the blue car, her hands on the steering wheel. James came outside, wearing his usual blue shirt, and sat beside her. "You okay?" he asked softly. Emily nodded but didn't speak. She felt tired of explaining herself to people who didn't understand. James smiled gently. "People often judge what they don't understand. Remember, what matters is what you know in your heart." Emily looked at him and felt comforted. James wasn't just her foster dad. He was her protector, her safe place. To help Emily feel stronger, James suggested they start a small project together. "Let's fix up the blue car," he said. "Make it shine like new." Emily agreed. Working on the car gave her something to focus on besides school problems. They cleaned the seats, polished the windows, and fixed small dents. James showed her how to check the engine and change the oil. As they worked side by side, Emily learned more about responsibility and care. She saw how James loved the car, just like he loved her. It was a symbol of trust and hope. One day, while cleaning the car, Emily said quietly, "Thank you for everything. For the car, for being here." James looked at her with kind eyes. "I'm proud of you, Emily. You're stronger than you know." Their bond grew deeper with each passing day. Emily started to share more of herself with James, her dreams of college, her favorite songs, even her fears. James listened without judgment and encouraged her to believe in herself. "You have so much potential," he said. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Slowly, Emily's confidence returned. She drove the blue car more often, even to school some days. James stood by her side, proud and supportive. One afternoon, a classmate approached Emily. "I'm sorry for what I said before," they said. "I didn't understand. Your dad seems really nice." Emily smiled, feeling hopeful. Maybe things were changing. That night, Emily looked at the blue car parked outside and felt grateful. It was more than just a car. It was a symbol of love, trust, and family. With James beside her, she knew she could face whatever came next. Emily's life was changing in many ways. The blue car was no longer just a way to get around. It had become a part of her story. She drove it to school, to the park, and sometimes just for fun. James was always proud to see her grow more independent. One day, James suggested something new. "Why don't we share your story?" he said. "It might help others understand what family really means." Emily thought about it. She had never talked much about her foster care experience, but James' idea made sense. Maybe if people heard her story, they would see beyond labels and understand her family better. They started by writing down her experiences. how she felt when she first came to James's home, how he taught her to drive the blue car, and how he became more than just a foster dad. Emily shared her fears, her hopes, and the challenges she faced at school. James helped her put the story together, making sure it was honest and clear. They wanted to show that family is about love, not just blood. When they shared the story online, something surprising happened. People from different places wrote messages of support and encouragement. Many said they related to Emily's experience or had similar stories of their own. Emily felt proud. Her story was helping others, and that gave her strength. At school, things started to change too. Some classmates who once whispered now smiled and greeted her. The words about James just doing his job seemed to fade away as people saw the truth of their bond. One afternoon, James and Emily sat together, looking at the messages they received. "See?" James said with a smile. "Your story matters." Emily nodded. She realized that sharing her truth was powerful. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. She looked at James, the man in the blue shirt who had given her a car, a home, and hope. "Thank you for believing in me," she said quietly. James smiled back. "I always will." As Emily prepared for her future, she felt ready for whatever came next. The road ahead was still full of challenges, but with James by her side and the blue car waiting in the driveway, she knew she could face them all. Her story was just beginning. Years later, the blue car still sat in the driveway, a little older but well cared for. Emily stood beside it, wearing a cap and gown. It was her college graduation day, a moment she never thought she would reach. James, wearing his usual blue shirt, stood proudly next to her. His black hair was grayer now, but his smile was the same warm one that had welcomed her all those years ago. Emily looked at James and felt a wave of gratitude. He had been more than a foster dad. He had been her family, her guide, and her friend. As she held her diploma, Emily thought back to the day James gave her the car keys. At first, she thought he was just doing his job. But now she knew the truth. James had given her much more than a car. He had given her hope, love, and a chance at a better life. People at the graduation cheered and smiled, but Emily's eyes searched for James in the crowd. When she found him, she waved, and he nodded proudly. After the ceremony, they stood together by the blue car. Emily ran her hand over its hood, remembering all the drives, the lessons, and the moments they had shared. "Thank you for believing in me," she said softly. James looked at her with pride. "You earned this, Emily. You worked hard and never gave up." They talked about the future, college, jobs, and dreams yet to be reached. Emily knew challenges would come, but she felt ready. The car had been the start of a journey of trust, family, and love. As the sun set, Emily got into the blue car. James sat beside her, just like the first time she drove. Together, they drove forward, ready to face whatever life brought next. Their story was a reminder that family is not just about blood, but about the love and support we give each other. And for Emily and James, that was everything.